Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Lisa Shield.
And I'm Benjamin Shield.
And this is Getting Inside the Right Male Mind. Thanks for spending your Sunday with me, babe.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate that. I'm going to turn in this direction a little bit. Today, we're going to talk about the three biggest fears men have when getting into relationships. Men and women both have fears. Look, getting into a relationship is challenging. A lot of women have been hurt. They carry a lot of fear from repeating past mistakes, picking another narcissist, or putting their faith and trust in a man that might be a pathological liar or a cheater. And so women certainly fear giving up their power in a relationship, being taken advantage of by a man, not having a man show up for her. But there are also very real fears that men have. And I think that women, in my experience, women underestimate these fears. They're deep and they're different for men than women. You may say to yourself, well, I have that same fear. But these three fears are very specific to men at a much deeper level. We may have these fears, but we have three that are probably, bigger, if that makes sense. But these are the three biggest for men. So, honey, I am curious. The first one is a man losing his independence in a relationship. I know a lot of powerful, successful women are afraid of losing their independence, right? But these are very masculine women, and independence is a masculine quality. So tell me about your fear. I'm kind of curious about your fear of losing your independence.
Well, I personally don't, because we're in a relationship that actually has really fostered both togetherness and each other's independence. So it's
a natural ball and chain?
right. No. So it's not my fear, but it may have been certainly when I was younger. And most men really have their lives the way they want it. They get up, they put on the shirt they want to put on, they, eat the way they want to eat. There's no one looking over their shoulder. They may have had a mother that was smothering or judgmental, or being in relationships that are limiting. And I think men, most of all, it's losing their freedom, but I think the real issue is, is it going to make my life smaller? Or is it going to make my life bigger being in a relationship? So, for us, over these 23 plus years, our lives have become bigger. But I think a lot of men have looked around at other relationships. There were single friends that got married, and their lives may look from the outside that their lives have gotten smaller, more limited.
And when you say smaller, what would be some ways that a man's life would be limited?
Controlling social activities, who they see, how often they see them. Do they have to give up friends who are females that are just friends, and there may be some jealousy? Or, do they have to sacrifice their work life?
Their dreams.
Their dreams, yeah. Their work life may be their dreams, and how much of that do they have to give up to be with the other person?
Yeah, a lot of times I think women want very, very successful men, but then they resent the amount of time that they have to commit to their careers. Yeah. And that's a tough bind for a man.
Yeah.
It's a really, really tough bind. Do you think that a man can love a woman deeply and still fear losing himself in the relationship?
I think that's possible, but I think if two people communicate and ask for what they need and are what we refer to as the guardians of each other's souls, where it's really, not only seeing that person more than they see themselves, but seeing their soul and that soul's journey and supporting that, well, then that's a win-win. You know, particularly, you know, and it has to go both ways. But I mean, that to me is the key to a happy relationship.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think we can do that. I think somebody could love somebody, but if they don't get what they need in return, you could still love that person, but she may not support you in the ways. You could still love someone and she could be jealous.
Yeah.
And that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I mean, when you love a person who is taking away your freedom out of her own insecurities and her own, you know, emotional immaturity, or it's tough. I mean, I think we've all been there. I'm sure you have. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Is there a way for a woman to, you know, give a man freedom, you know, and make him feel connected at the same time?
Well, I go back to what we talk about in your course, or courses, that it's about finding the guardian of your soul. And when there's that mutual caring that we want the best for each other, and we see what that soul needs, not just what I need, but looking what the other person needs and fostering that, and getting that back in return.
Well, and I think for one, you know, like if we're going to talk in practical terms, one thing a woman can do is, if a man needs to change a date, or, you know, if a work thing comes up or whatever that is, it's, you know, being okay with, like when you were running late for our first date, I didn't get bent out of shape. It's being okay, giving a man space and room to be himself. I think that some of the women in our programs, when they talk, it's like they have this long list of expectations of how a man should show up. And, you know, any man worth being with, if he picking up on that kind of energy, I would think he would run for the hills.
Yeah, and I think if a woman has a list of how a man should be, if he doesn't live up to all those things, that he can feel shame. That, you know, well, you know, I wish you were making more money, or I wish this, or I wish you'd dress better, or I wish you would comb your hair differently, or something. And that brings shame into rather than respect into the relationship.
Well, it's also, I mean, I have watched some of our clients get upset about very silly things, like a man won't get on Zoom, but, you know, he'll do a FaceTime but not a Zoom, or, you know, or asking for their last name, you know, things that are, I don't know what's going on with that man and why he asked for my last name. I don't have to give it to him, or I can say, look, when we go out and I feel comfortable knowing, you know, I just don't give out my last name for privacy reasons, but once we get to know each other, I'd be happy to, you know. But when a man just feels like he hits brick walls or hoops to jump through, it's so difficult. And it's such an early sign in the beginning stages of getting to know someone that this is going to be difficult.
Yeah.
Like there's just, you know, I'm going to be having to be constantly like on guard and giving up parts of myself for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have you felt that way in relationships?
Oh, I think probably men who have been in multiple relationships in their lives, you know, serial relationships, have felt that. And that's why they're not with those women now. there's a reason.
I know I used to be like that. You know, I used to be very exacting, and, you know, it was my way. Like I was scrutinizing constantly. And then I sat back and I thought, that would be awful. Like, that would just be awful for a man. Yeah. He doesn't know. I've got all these rules. It's insane. Let's move on to number 2, disappointing a woman.
Ooh.
Oof. So do men really fear that they'll disappoint a woman? And why is that such a big thing? Like we just say, oh God, I'm so disappointed you canceled our date last night.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think men inherently want to be a woman's hero. You know, and if you look at every Marvel movie and every Western and, you know, and that love stories, that men ultimately become a woman's hero. And we can see that movie 1,000 times and not get, you know, in different forms, and not get tired of it, because men want to be a woman's hero. And the opposite end of that is disappointing a woman. You know, that is deflating. And in some ways it feels emasculating.
It's funny. Why? What is it about the word disappointing that is so emasculating?
Well, it's shaming. And that's the worst thing a man could feel is shame.
But what is it? Because, like, you know, honestly, like for a woman to say, I'm so disappointed, we would use that word all the time. Like the word disappointed literally has a different meaning for men than it does for women.
Yeah. Well,
Does that make sense?
For a man, it just immediately cuts off communication. You know, it just like, and then he asks himself, well, you know, first, you know, I have to be a different person so I don't disappoint her, or what do I have to be not to disappoint her?
Well, and I think if I can put myself in a man's shoes, from what I understand, men are trying to be our heroes. They really are trying to impress us. I think women sometimes have this idea that men don't care. Do you know what I mean? And so it's hard sometimes because so many men have let us down that we have a view of men that we don't really understand the lengths at which some men go to please us and to try to impress us, if that makes sense. Yeah. And we miss that completely. So the guy could have put so much trouble into the date. He may have been racking his brain, talking to his best friend to pick the perfect restaurant, you know, all of these things. And the woman, you know, and then something happens and the woman says, oh, I'm disappointed.
Right.
And we miss this whole, like, how he's been planning and, you know, and trying. Like my client, when her ex-boyfriend bought her lingerie from Victoria's Secret, and she preferred fancier lingerie, more exclusive lingerie, and I'm sure he was crushed.
Yeah, and there was a client who was disappointed in a suitor because he brought store-bought flowers, but he went out of his way and he said, these are really pretty, and here, I want to give you these beautiful flowers. You know, they weren't from a florist. You know, they could have been from a grocery store, but I'm sure they were nice, you know.
But he stopped, or he picked him up, or, you know, even if he was grocery shopping and he thought, oh, I'm going out tonight, he grabbed, you know, some flowers thinking it was a nice gesture and not thinking that she would be disappointed because they weren't the right flowers, you know? I mean, I understand her disappointment at not feeling special because he didn't get her special flowers, but at the same time, she missed this gesture that this man made. Yeah, women do that. We do that a lot.
And it would make a man not want to please her more, but more to back away, saying that this is a woman that I can't please. And, you know, if I extrapolate 5 years and 15 and 20 years from now, what is that going to be like?
So how would a woman subconsciously or unknowingly trigger a man's fear of inadequacy without realizing it?
Well, I think by, you know, saying I'm disappointed, or even just a gesture or a tone of voice.
Or a face, a look.
Yeah. I mean, a man is expecting, if he goes out of his way to get a woman a gift, he expects, joy and appreciation and, even gratitude for that gift. And if it just lays flat, or if it's rejected, then it's deflating. And he may think, why try the next time? I'm going to seek a woman who could appreciate this.
Yeah.
Or communicate in a kind way. Let's say that the man brought store-bought flowers. It could be a week or two later that the woman could say, you know what my favorite flowers are? I love lilies. I love calla lilies. Or I love, yellow roses, or whatever it is. Just in conversation. And so he meant, men want to please women. And sometimes there's not the communication that the information of how to please them.
Mm-hmm. And she could have said, I love store-bought flowers, and I really love flowers from the floor.
Right, but probably not.
I'm teasing.
Right.
That was a joke. No, but it's lovely to say, I love roses, and I really, really love dahlias.
Yeah.
Like that. How can a woman let a man know that he disappointed her without shaming him?
Well, first she could give a compliment, saying, I so appreciate that you went out of your way. It means the world to me, and I think you're such a man. And, when we talked about going on a trip, we were talking about maybe something, even grander to be together. And so if not this time, maybe next time. I look forward to it. It'll give me something to look forward to.
I think the guy would still feel shamed if you said even grander.
Yeah.
But she might say, and I would love to plan something together with you next time.
Perfect.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how can a woman show appreciation without sounding like it's stroking a guy's ego? Because that's another thing, I don't know, I thank you all the time for everything. Yeah. I think if it's sincere, that's really what matters. Yeah, I think so. All right, well, I'm going to just come down here and get my list of questions. Professional moments in podcasting. So let's do number 3, honey. I think the biggest fear, one of the biggest fears anyway, is opening up emotionally to a woman. Mm-hmm. Being vulnerable. What makes emotional vulnerability so hard for men?
I think just the lack of experience in doing that. It's when a guy is with a guy friend, they're usually both sitting at a bar stool staring at a football game, and that's how men get together. Or, they're talking about dates but it's not vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And we just don't do that with other guys. So I think that men feel that, if I get into a relationship, there's going to be endless processing. I'm going to have to deal with her emotions, and it means that I have to share mine at the same time. And mm-hmm. A lot of men just aren't used to it.
Wow. That's so crazy. It's really true, though. I think if women really sat back and looked, unless it's an ultra feminine man, I don't think most men really do that at all. I think some men may open up or share or have a conversation about something that's happening in their lives. I know you and Richard had very, very, very deep conversations, but I still don't think they were the same kinds of conversations you would have had with a woman.
No.
Were they? They must have been very different.
Well, I think that having a special deep friendship, one can talk about anything. Mm-hmm. But I think that speaking with a woman, that it's a different tone.
Yeah, it definitely is. Do men even realize when they're emotionally unavailable or even know what emotional availability looks and sounds like?
Well, there's not a lot of modeling with their friends. So, and there may not have been modeling with their parents. So they don't have much experience in it. And so I think, even though it may be fearful for a man, they're also seeking it in a woman, who they could be themselves and not feel under pressure to really go beyond their comfort zone. But that comfort zone begins to expand with time.
Well, it does. And I think that it will always be that you have certain boundaries emotionally when things happen or if something's going on. You have very clear boundaries. And your desire to talk about something could be much smaller. Not that you don't share with me, but I also know when you say, I don't want to talk about this right now, you don't want to talk about it.
I think men need to internally process more, and women often like to express. I mean, after a date, a man isn't going to get on the phone immediately and call 3 of his friends and talk about the date.
Right.
He'll turn on the TV and just eat a bag of Doritos and think, well, that was nice.
Yeah. Are a lot of the women you dated, or can you think of women that you dated who were emotionally unavailable themselves?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And what did that look like?
It felt empty. It felt like there was no there. It felt that there was only so far, it was so close that I can get to that person, or they're willing to share themselves, and it just wasn't working.
And how did that look? Like, were they wouldn't open up to you, or?
I think they themselves had fear of relationship.
Well, I understand what may have been underneath it, but how did that seem like on a date? If you were on a date with a woman like that?
Well, there wasn't a true conversation. There was almost like if you throw someone a ball and they throw it back in a different direction, that they're actually deflecting any type of vulnerability.
Interesting. And it's so funny because I think a lot of women think that they're emotionally available, but they're not getting into their hearts.
Yeah.
They're just not in their hearts. What helps a man start to feel safe opening up, without being pushed or analyzed?
Well, I think a woman just gently sharing a bit of vulnerability, like, I was really nervous coming to this date, or I've had this on my mind and I just wanted to share it with you. And it opens the door for a man to step through with his thoughts. And it's titration, to keep building up on a foundation of trust and safety. You see how things are received and responded to. And then it just builds. That it becomes a natural process.
Mm-hmm. But let's say I'm on a date so what you're saying is you go on a date and you say, wow, I was really looking forward to this date and I was kind of nervous about meeting you.
Yeah. And let's say a man said that, and if a woman just started asking a bunch of questions, well, why were you nervous? Why? It's a buzzkill. As opposed to a woman saying, wow, that means a lot to me that you were thinking about me and the date, and that's really terrific.
Do you think a guy would say that?
No. But I'm just Reversing roles. Yeah.
That's very funny. I think something that women don't realize is that men, look, some guys go on dates and especially, first dates and stuff, and they can't stop talking. I had a really sweet thing. Somebody said to me, she's with a great guy. I can't remember who told me this, but this woman said that this guy just talked and talked and talked and talked, and she didn't know what to do. And somebody said to her, just give him a chance. Like, he's just give him a chance, and he wants you to know who he is and whatever. And she said to me, I'm so glad I listened to this person, because sure enough, he said everything he felt, over the however many dates that he needed to say. And he talked himself out, and now we're good together. And she's like, he's great. He's just great. But I think that most men, when it comes to really deep emotional disclosure, they will share something very small. Mm-hmm. Like, we had one client where a guy said to her, he walked her to her car. They were waiting for the car to be pulled up. And he said, I just wanted you to know that I really had a hard time in my last relationship. Mm. And that was major vulnerability. Yeah. But she came on our group Q&A call, and she said, God, I wish you would have opened up more.
Wow.
And, I said, well, that's male vulnerability. Yeah. And I said, if you had said to him, thank you so much for sharing that with me.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. Then the next time he may have opened up and shared a little more.
Yeah.
So that's really, you have to be very perceptive. Women always want more. Mm. Or, they want to say, well, why was your last relationship difficult? Yeah. I think the car got pulled up and she didn't have a chance to do that.
It would take a man from his heart to his head to answer a question like that.
Yeah, it would be the worst thing. When a man does share with you or get vulnerable, you don't want to process him.
Yeah.
It's better, the best thing you could do in those moments is say, thank you for sharing that, or, or just be compassionate and say that must have been very difficult for you.
Yeah, I think most processing is cerebral more than heartfelt.
Yeah, that's a great point. Babe, what helped you, open up to me? And share. I know at one point you said, probably, one of the most beautiful things you've ever said in our relationship. You looked, you stopped for a moment and you thought, and then you said, I don't think there's anything I haven't told you. Mm-hmm. And if I haven't told you, it's because I just haven't thought of it yet. Mm-hmm. And to me, I remember in that moment, it was like, here's this man who I respect and admire with every cell of my being, and he's telling me that he has opened his whole heart to me. Yeah. How is that even possible?
Well, there was no judgment, and you created space for me to share, and you didn't co-op. Like if I were saying, my last relationship was difficult, you didn't go into your last 2 or 3 relationships, and that it wasn't co-opted. You gave me space to say what I needed to say, and maybe some silence to just let me integrate what I said. We usually think about having to integrate what we hear, but for men, we have to integrate what we just said.
Interesting. And I never got angry or upset or about, anything that you did share, or get jealous or suspicious.
Yeah.
Because you shared things that probably would have been very personal, and some women I could imagine would have been very, very upset. Mm-hmm. To know certain parts of your life, they may have judged you for those things.
Yeah. So I felt no judgment, and I felt trust and safety.
Who am I to judge?
Yeah. And there was never a moment where anything I said was ever used against me, because that would be a buzzkill.
Yes. That would be a relationship ender.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, baby. Thanks.
My pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Kind sir, for this beautiful conversation. So, I just want you to take away that men have fears too. And just because you go on a date and you feel like you click with a man and that there's chemistry and all, there's a lot more to a man committing to a relationship with you and wanting to spend his life with you. And some men, not every man is avoidant. You can't just put labels on men because they're not willing to commit or commit to you. There may be very real things that they're sensing and picking up on, and feeling from even the first few dates where it's very clear that this isn't a relationship that they would want to be in long term. Like, it may be that they pick up on judgment or they pick up on control. Men are very tuned into these things. And those fears of losing their independence and what were the three? Losing their independence, disappointing, feeling shame because they disappoint a woman, and opening up emotionally, being vulnerable, and then being judged for that, or having a woman use it against them. These are such real fears, and they don't just come from nowhere. They come from having been raised by a controlling mother or being in a relationship, with a woman where they were controlled and they did give up their freedom.
Or seeing other relationships around them or their parents' relationships.
Yeah, and there's very real reason for these fears. But with the right, I will tell you one of the things that I knew in my heart of hearts, that if I could give a man the things that I knew his soul needed, that he would want to be with me.
Yeah, yeah. And where would he go?
And where would he go?
Yeah.
Where would he go?
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I figured out what those things are. And I will say, it's not like, now I have even greater depth of understanding after having coached for 23 years. But coming into this relationship, I had a willingness to learn. I was a great listener. I knew I could listen to you, and I would take my cues from you. I didn't have to agree or disagree with you about things. When I knew there was something that you wanted or needed, and you told me, I did it for you. And I just paid attention and let you teach me and show me what you needed. And I don't say this lightly, but we have this beautiful Bernese Mountain Dog, and he is so affectionate. He is so affectionate. And, I watch this dog when I'm petting him, and I see what he needs. I can feel it. I can feel how he leans in. And it's the same with you, honey. I look at the expressions on your face, and I look in your eyes, and I see what you mirror back to me when I, do certain things. And it's the greatest joy of my life to be able to, all I can say is not stroke your ego, but stroke your soul. It's almost like petting someone's soul and seeing that beautiful part of them come alive. So, it's really paying attention to men, listening to what they say, and trusting your gut, because women are so intuitive that when you do click in, you can feel what your man needs. His face, his eyes, his expressions, will tell you. So anyway, you can get past those fears together. All right. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lisa Shield.
And I'm Benjamin Shield.
And if you have any desire at all to find a guy like this, he may be a jock, he could be a CEO or, a fisherman. I don't know. He could be whatever, but a man who has the character and principles of and the ability to be a true guardian of your soul, then please go to lisashield.com, click the button all over the website. It will take you to my free 30-minute webinar, which will tell you even more about our approach to finding love. And you can sign up for a call with my team, and we will talk to you about how you can work with us personally so that you can find your guy. I'm Lisa Shield.
And I'm Benjamin
And
Shield.
we already said that, but thank you so much for joining us. We will see you again next time. Bye-bye. And you know what? One last thing. Like this podcast, rate it, and tell everybody if you enjoyed this about what we're doing, because I don't think there are many people or any people out there talking about this subject the way we do. So please tell everyone to tune in, even your guy friends. They seem to we actually get emails from men saying how much they get out of this. So please tell everyone and come back and see us again. Bye-bye.